Hey there Hexers, this is Function here with part 4 of my PvP champion breakdowns. There's 20 PvP champions in total, 4 in each color. Today we're going to be talking about the Ruby champions. Remember, all champion powers use basic actions with a once per turn limit. Let's dive right in and get to the first one though. Alright, so Polka the Conflagration is an orc mage with double ruby threshold, 3 charges. Create a blaze elemental and put it into play. Well, a blaze elemental is a 3/1 troop with speed. At the end of your turn, sacrifice the troop. And let's get into the pros and cons. So it's great in aggro decks. You're going to be playing on turn 3, hypothetically, and since it has speed, you're able to attack with it that turn. And hopefully, if you're on the right track, you're going to be swinging in for 3 damage with that and along with a bunch of other guys. Also, what's nice about it is you're activating the ability, but you still have your resources open. So if you're playing this turn 3, you're still holding 3 resources probably, and in doing so, you're going to be able to play like another guy with speed, or a burn spell, or any other card in your hand, hopefully that turn, and be getting in for a whole bunch of damage, not just the blaze elemental, you know. So that's how that's going to work. What are some of the cons though? Well, you need to have an opening to pull it off. If your opponent has a bunch of defenders and they're just able to easily block the blaze elemental, or if you don't have much of a board position established, well, being able to put that blaze elemental into play and attack with it isn't really going to do anything unless it actually gets in for some damage. Also, the double threshold is somewhat limiting. Really here, you want to be playing this turn 3. If you're not doing it by turn 3 because you didn't have the ruby threshold, you're really setting yourself back. The whole goal with this card is that you're getting in for damage multiple times and you're doing so early. You want to be able to use it early and often, or else you might as well have gone with something else entirely. Another thing I should mention is the blaze elemental costs 3, so it works with other inspired troops, primarily Ruby Pyromancer, who costs 2. You play the Pyromancer on turn 2, activate the ability on turn 3, and the blaze elemental is actually going to be a 4/1 at that point, which is really strong. So keep that in mind. We're going to move on to the next one, which is Farknee. Man, like, these Ruby champions, Polka the Conflagration and Farknee, are not necessarily the easiest ones to say, but we will move on. It is double ruby threshold, 5 charges. Deal damage to target troop equal to the highest cost among artifacts you control. So if you have a 1 cost artifact, you'll do 1 damage to that troop. If you have a 5 cost artifact, you'll do 5 damage to that troop, which is definitely pretty good. So the pro is that it's removal. It's basically like having an extra removal card at your leisure. You know, you don't have to necessarily have it in your hand. It's just like an ace in the sleeve. You've always got it available so long as you have those 5 charges, and maybe your opponent plays a guy that you didn't expect and you just don't have anything to kill him. Well, you're going to have your champion power ready to blow him up so long as you have an artifact that has high enough cost. So one thing that's nice about him is he works really well with extra charges. There are some artifacts that are going to be giving you extra charges, maybe some other cards as well, but the idea here is that, like, if you play a charge bot on turn 1, which gives you a bonus charge, that on turn 4 you'll have this available to you maybe, and you're going to be that much more likely to be able to kill your opponent's troop because they're probably playing something weak that turn. So keeping the tempo advantage, where you're building your board position while eliminating your opponents, is definitely something really strong and something to keep in mind. What are the cons though? Well, he's got quite a few cons. They definitely kind of balance out, but there are always things you got to keep in mind. He does nothing on his own. If you don't have any artifacts, you're going to be out of luck. Maybe you're playing a deck that has a lot of artifacts, you just didn't draw any. And if this is the champion you're playing in that situation, you might want to just mulligan your hand because you're not going to get anything out of him. Granted, having 5 charges, you're going to have drawn multiple cards by the time you got there, and you're probably going to want to keep it. But it's always something to keep in mind is that he doesn't necessarily do something on his own like many other champions do. It's also prone to shenanigans. If you're relying on a 6 cost artifact to deal 6 damage to another troop and they remove it and all you have left is a 1 cost artifact, well, the way that works is you're like, I'm going to use the charge power to kill that troop, and in response your opponent blows up your artifact. well, all of a sudden you're going to do less damage because they blew up your best artifact and you probably wasted your champion power. So if you're using this when your opponent has resources available to them, or you think they might have a removal card for artifacts, you might want to rethink what you're going to do or force them to play it beforehand. Also, since it's 5 charges, it's definitely a high cost. It's a little slow. You'll probably get 2 activations on it over the course of a long game, and on a short game, you're going to be lucky just to get 1. The final thing that I feel like really weighs against him is Bertram, the Sapphire champion that creates worker bots. Feels like he's a lot better in most cases. If you're really heavy Ruby and you're not playing much Sapphire, or you're not playing Sapphire at all, sure, this guy's going to be better in a heavy artifact deck that is only Ruby. But I feel like most artifact decks are going to rely on playing a lot of Sapphire cards, and a lot of the artifacts rely on having other artifacts in play to be useful. And when you're doing a synergy deck like that, playing a champion that improves that synergy seems better than one that kind of feeds off of it. And that's why I like Bertram in most cases. Farknee's still definitely worth a consideration, but I think most of the time Bertram's going to be better. Last champion we're going to be... third champion we're going to be looking at today is Lionel Flynn. This one's not super hard to say. He's a human rogue, single ruby threshold, 5 charges, target troop gets permanent +2/+0. So the pros are he's easily splashable. If your deck has any ruby in it at all, chances are you'll be able to play this guy if you really want him, and by the time you have 5 charges, you'll probably have that 1 ruby threshold. What he works really well with is non-vanilla troops. And I'm talking troops with either Flight or Crush or Swift Strike. Those are the main 3 abilities you want to see with him. There's some other ones. Speed kind of works all right. Not quite as good because they might have a block already. But Swift Strike, it kind of doubles up as a defensive ability. So that's nice with him, is that Swift Strike enables you to use him defensively in some cases. Flight just works really well. You're going to be connecting for more damage. And Crush is, even if your guy gets blocked, you're still going to get some extra damage through, and since you give it more attack, it's that much stronger. Well, let's look at the cons, though. The big thing is it's prone to removal. By turn 5, your opponent's going to have some sort of removal, and they're going to see that you've been building up the charges for Lionel Flynn. At that point, if you play this on your best guy, I guarantee you they're going to remove it a lot of the time. So if you think your opponent is holding removal, you probably want to play this on your second best guy so that your opponent kind of has a bigger choice to make on what card to actually remove. Do they remove your best troop or the one that you just used the charge power on? It creates some more choices for them. And if they do remove your guy, you're not completely blown out because you kind of evened the quality of what you do have. Another big thing here is, since it only gives you more attack and not more defense, is it doesn't really stop blockers. You still get blocked. Say you put this on a 3/1 guy, make him into a 5/1, and he gets blocked by something with 1 attack. All of a sudden you lost your guy, and it just feels like a waste. You know, you really got to put this on a guy that can use it. And finally, it's somewhat slow. Not only do you have to wait for 5 charges, but you have to have a troop in play that hopefully can attack that turn, or you're going to use it defensively, and it doesn't matter if it can attack that turn, but it's still kind of slow and clunky. So that's something to keep in mind. He's definitely not one of my favorites, and it also seems to me that a lot of the times you want that +2 attack, you might as well be using Polka the Conflagration, because she's going to be active a lot earlier and more often, and she's just going to get in for that immediate 3 damage, that where if the Blaze Elemental gets removed, you're not also losing a troop that you attached this ability to. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm not a big fan of this guy, but he might fit into some decks, or where you just need to splash him kind of thing. Finally, we have Tete, son of Amok. It's kind of like the Klingons from Star Trek, Worf, son of Moog. Maybe that's what they're going for. I think that's kind of cool, actually. So Tete, son of Amok. He's even holding the sword that kind of looks like one of those Klingon swords almost. So he's an Orc Warlock, 1 ruby threshold, 6 charges, reveal the top 10 cards of your deck, create a rock elemental with attack and defense equal to the number of revealed resources, and put it into play. Shuffle the revealed cards into your deck. That's definitely a mouthful. Anytime a card has a lot of text, you want to read it over a couple times, and it's always going to make you think, oh man, they can do bonkers things with this. He's going to be amazing. It's got all this text on here, and that must mean he does something powerful. Well, sorry to break it to you folks, but there are no pros and cons from me for Tete, son of Amok. Instead, I would just say, stop now, don't play him. And the reason is so most decks are going to have, even in limited or constructed, 1/3 of them are going to be resources. So say on the average case, you activate this ability and you get either 3 or 4 resources if you had 1/3 of them on average. Well, doing 6 charges to get a 3 or 4 attack and defense guy doesn't seem all that special. It's not terrible, but it really feels kind of wishy-washy to me. And if you're playing an aggressive deck, you're going to have fewer resources in your deck in total. If you're playing a slower deck, sure, you might have more. You might have like 25 resources out of 60 cards. But it just doesn't feel that impressive to me. And it's got a random element where, yeah, sometimes you're going to get some like 8/8 troop and be able to swing in for all kinds of damage, and it's going to win you the game. But most of the time, it's just going to give you like a 3 attack, 3 defense guy and not do that much. The next thing I'll say about him is the first activation might be decent, but the second activation is going to be awful. If you activate this a second time when he gets to 12 charges, chances are there's not going to be that many resources left in your deck. And maybe, especially in limited, you're going to have like 4 or 5 resources left in your limited deck. And at that point, way late in the game, you're going to be making a 4 or 5 cost or attack and defense guy. Unless the board is totally stalled out, this just really seems weak to me. And at that point, why aren't you just playing a different champion that would have won you the game that much sooner? So, sure, there's going to be times where this guy, like I said, makes a huge troop and wins you the game. Most of the time, though, he's going to be underwhelming, or he's going to make you a 0/0 troop in really bad cases, and you're going to really be shooting yourself in the foot. So this is not a type of guy that I like, but who knows? I mean, maybe he'll work every once in a while, and people will play him, and I'll be wrong. All right, so that wraps everything up for my champion breakdown. My thoughts on the Ruby champion pool is they definitely all seem to be high risk, high reward. Tete, son of Amok, is definitely high risk, high reward. Every once in a while, you're gonna get that big one. Lionel Flynn, you're making one of your guys bigger, and if it does connect to your opponent's face, you're getting in for extra damage. And if it continues to survive, you're getting in for more and more damage over the course of the game. Farknee, he's going to be removing guys, and Polka is just going to be getting in for that early extra damage so long as the Blaze Elemental connects. So with the Ruby champions, there's always going to be that chance that they didn't do something for you. And out of all 3 of the playable champions, they do all revolve around doing damage. Polka's Blaze Elemental needs to attack that turn because it gets sacrificed at the end of turn. Farknee does damage to a troop, and Lionel Flynn is going to be making your guys hit harder. So they all revolve around damage. If you're not going to be winning from early damage, you might be wanting to play a champion from a different color, but it's something to keep in mind as you're building your deck, that if you want to play a Ruby champion, that damage is going to be one of your big goals, and you need to be utilizing it in a way that works well with that particular champion. Alright, well that's the whole wrap up, but we did our, I Have Creation contest a couple weeks back, seeing how big people could make I Have Creations in ludicrous scenarios, and I thought playing it on turn 4 would probably be possible. I didn't see that it would be able to go infinite on turn 4, which is absolutely crazy to me. And then the idea that people would be able to get such high numbers on turn 3, I think we have people that are in the 5 digits, so tens of thousands. I Have Creation for tens of thousands on turn 3, which is absolutely ridiculous as well. We're going to be posting the results pretty soon. We got to go comb through them, see who really pulled out the highest one, and then we'll be all announcing that in a video coming up pretty soon, probably next week. Another thing is check out the dev Q&A on the official Hex forums from last Friday. Ben Stoll answered a whole bunch of questions last week on the forums. It was really awesome. There were a lot of really good questions that people were asking, and answered a lot of stuff that I was interested to know. I asked a bunch of questions for myself. He answered some of mine, and people were definitely asking him some good stuff, and he took a lot of time to answer all of them. It's not like he was just giving short one-sentence answers. He definitely put a lot of effort in, which was really cool. I appreciate it, and I think a lot of other people did too. All right, so that's everything. Subscribe and comment to my video if you liked it. I'm going to be going to Gen Con pretty soon, and if you have anything that you want me to look out for as far as Hex goes for Gen Con, definitely comment on the video, and I will do my best to let you guys know more about that. Less fail, more function.